That's Michael. And he's the one I want to talk to you about. I looked at them from where I was sitting, watching my beautiful 36-year-old wife and the rather good-looking man with her, who was no more than 23 or so. It didn't look or sound very good. Did it? Debbie had a very serious look on her face. But this Michael guy was smiling? Or would you call it a smirk? It didn't really matter, but he looked quite pleased with himself. From the sounds of it, he had good reason to be. What about Michael? I asked. Debbie swallowed and coughed to hide her nervousness. Charlie, you probably know that the sex between us hasn't been too good lately. I don't know how you could say that, Debbie, I pleaded, and she glanced at Michael for moral support. Look, Charlie, Michael interjected. I don't know you, young man, I interrupted him. And you don't know me. If you want to talk to me, don't call me Charlie. That's Mr. Martin to you. Michael stood, furious, his face turning an interesting shade of red. He knew I had the upper hand over him on this one. So that was 10 for me. Look, Charlie, it's not that I still don't love you or anything like that. I think about you all the time, and I can't imagine life without you. And I gestured for her to continue. I don't want anything to change between us, darling. I still love you as much as I did when we were married. It's just that, spiritually, I feel like I've expanded a little more than you have, Charlie, and I need some space to kind of find myself. She paused again and smiled at me, hoping I would agree with her. By find yourself. Debbie made a face and took a deep breath, looking at me like I was a difficult child throwing a tantrum. Charlie, you're not making this very easy for me. I'm sorry, honey, I mumbled, and it became more than obvious that the conversation wasn't going at all the way they expected. Eventually, the Mickey boy nudged Debbie to continue, clearly not prepared to address me as Mr. Martin. Well, we've been thinking, Charlie, she finally began. You and I continue to live happily ever after as before, but I can arrange to go out with Michael 2 or 3 times a week. Did she? And then you could find yourself, Debbie. Well, yes, I would, my wife agreed. With Michael's help, and, of course, yours, we continue to live the way we've been living for the last 6 weeks. Me not getting sex from you, and Pricky Mickey's boy having fun with you a few times a week. Debbie looked somewhat depressed. Dear, I'm sorry I've neglected you lately, but I promise I'll make it up to you. I held out my hand to stop her, looked at the other man and asked, Do you mind, Mickey? Is it okay if your girlfriend entertains me once in a while? He grinned back stupidly. Sure they had me in their hands. Whatever you say, man. Sleep with Debbie all you want. I gave them a few moments before bombarding them with my next comment. That's more or less the same thing Linda said. It just so happened that my statement caused them to freeze. Debbie stood with her mouth open in surprise, and Mickey boy burst forward, raising his fists at me. Leave Linda out of this, you bastard, he shouted angrily at me. Sorry, Mickey. Trust me, you don't stand a chance. If you do, you'll regret it. She was right, of course. I might be 15 years older than him, and he might be working out hard in the gym, but I had come a long way from building my own construction company. And over the years, I had learned to defend myself against the toughest guys in the business. Michael stepped back, thinking twice. What a shame. Never mind, maybe there would be another chance. Why are you dragging Michael's wife into this? Debbie finally spoke up. There's no need to drag her into this. And me too. I didn't start it, I replied. She contacted me a month ago and told me what was going on. Between you two. Debbie looked surprised, but Mickey was stunned. Obviously, that you really had a relationship with Linda. If you mean, do I have feelings for her? I replied, my voice firm. Then the answer is yes. At first, it was just mutual comfort, but after a while, it became something more meaningful. You're lying, Mickey said, his voice filled with indignation. She would never betray me, especially to someone like you. I raised an eyebrow at Debbie, who looked annoyed. She and I were the same age, so what was Mickey referring to? You need proof, Mickey? I smiled. Do you want me to describe a special detail that only someone really close to her would know? His eyes were filled with anger. If looks could kill, I probably wouldn't be standing here. I teased him with pleasure, but I've convinced her it can be a lot of fun. She's thrilled. You should have spent more time with her experimenting instead of doing my wife. I'm leaving, he shouted angrily, shoving Debbie's hand away from him. I'm going to show that damn wife what's what. Wait, Mickey, I told him, pulling a key out of my pocket. If you don't have a key like this, you can't get in the house. I have my own key, you damn idiot, he shouted irritably. Not like this one, I informed him. We changed the locks on your house. Mickey turned visibly pale. I like that. Okay, I'll be off then, I informed them cheerfully, standing up from my seat for the first time. If you need me, you know where I'll be. What about your stuff, Charlie? Debbie shrieked, and the first tears began to pour down her cheeks. You can't just walk away from me like that, darling. Oh, but I can, my dear. Debbie hurriedly looked around the room and noticed, for the first time, that several of my personal belongings were missing. She burst into tears and tried to throw herself into my arms, but I held her back and calmly told her that she could keep her house and car, and that my attorney would contact her about everything else. But how am I going to live, Charlie? I told him as I left the house. It was nice meeting you. Bye, Debbie. Thanks for everything. And it was nice to meet you. 3 zeros. Game over. 000 or so to get rid of Debbie. But this wasn't the first time she had cheated on me, and my feelings for her were dead. Besides, the fact that she was an animal in bed, seemed to be head over heels in love with me, and her father was a multimillionaire didn't hurt either. What a laugh.